Thank you for being with us this morning. I'm Joe Quinn, Executive Director of the Arkansas Good Roads Foundation, and we are coming to you from the beautiful Crystal Bridges Museum today. We hope you are safe, and we really look forward to the day when we can get back to doing things like this in person, maybe even having a little lunch afterwards instead of meeting on Zoom. But here we are today, and once again, we do hope you are safe. We want to talk to you today about a new type of program and a new type of partnership between Good Roads and the Walton Family Foundation. During the pandemic, as more bicycles than ever before are on the roads in Arkansas and all across the country, now is a logical time to be talking about safety for the people riding the bikes and safety for the people who are driving vehicles around the bikes. The pandemic has reminded all of us that bicycle riding offers natural social distancing, and after many months indoors, it means a reason for families to get outside and get some fresh air. But this also means more bicycles on the road than ever before. That means more riders and more new riders. Good Roads are Safe Roads is the name of this great new project, and we need those of you watching today to get involved. More specifically, we will talk to you today about a new law in Arkansas that has really changed the landscape of bike safety and has made Arkansas an innovative national leader in this space. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to show you a couple of slides to talk about the issue. Then we've assembled a great panel to talk about the issue. We will also be telling you how you can phone in or put in questions from home. So once again, thank you for being here. Let's take a look right now at a couple of slides. The Arkansas Good Roads Foundation works to promote adequate funding and financing for the planning and development of roads and bridges across our wonderful state. And these involve local roads, state highways, federal roads. Good Roads has been very involved for more than 50 years in this issue. Now, the big picture goals as we think about this campaign, we want to raise awareness of roadway laws for cyclists and for motorists. We want to educate target audiences in order to change behavior and ensure safer roads for everyone. Now, when we talk about this issue, this means that we are trying to reach different target audiences, and many of you looking in today are stakeholders, and you understand the need that on any issue like this, there are different audiences. These are loyal bikers, recreational bikers who maybe get out and ride less frequently, and then there are drivers, the family driver, the professional driver, and an uninformed driver who really doesn't know or think much about this issue at all. And then there are campaign influencers who matter a great deal to us. These include our elected officials, community leaders, first responders, and the media. Now, as we think about all this, there will be four key messages that we will be talking about during the coming year. This will include the upsurge in biking that has taken place during the pandemic. It's pretty astounding if you walk in a Walmart these days. It's hard to see a lot of new bikes. The demand for new bikes has never been greater. And we're also very aware as we think about this issue that, bikes can be very different. There are bikes you pick up at Walmart for your family, and then there are extremely sophisticated bikes that serious riders buy and use. The upsurge makes this a very logical time to be talking more about safety, and our safety conversation is built on the platform of understanding new legislation, treating a stoplight as a stop sign and a stop sign as a yield sign. I'm going to say that one more time because it's kind of core to what we're changing. A bike rider can treat a stop light as a stop sign and a stop sign as a yield sign, and during our panel discussion today, we will talk a lot more about why that matters. And then there's economic growth. There are some fascinating things going on in the biking community in Arkansas and across the country right now, but the bottom line is when you have a region that is attractive to bicycle riders and cyclists, it means hotel rooms, it means seats in restaurants, it means people buying bikes. It really, in terms of what our state can and should be, can mean economic growth for any region that really puts serious thought into this. So, I will tell you one more slide. As I said, the Good Roads, our Safe Roads law allows cyclists to treat a red light as a stop sign and a stop sign as a yield sign. The graphic you're looking at is a very sort of clean and clear description of what we are doing. Now, if you have questions for our panel as we go through the discussion, please feel to type them into the chat box on the bottom of your screen or call 479-553-8137. Once again, if you have questions or thoughts on this discussion, type them in the chat box or call 479-553-8137. Now, we have a great panel this morning. I'm going to introduce everybody, and then we'll come back around and start some questions. Jeremy Pate is the Home Region Senior Program Officer with the Walton Family Foundation. Jeremy is also a respected voice in the Northwest Arkansas biking community. Jeremy is with us from his home today via Zoom. Teresa Crossland is a seasoned political communication consultant who is a partner with Shiloh Communications. She also owns Red Iron Strategies. Teresa and the team at Shiloh led the effort to pass the new bicycle safety law in Arkansas, and Teresa will be talking with us today about that perspective. Alex Hinojosa is with the 4 Media Group in Bentonville, a firm that is helping us think through the new approach to safety. Alex has worked extensively on research to define attitudes about bicycling in Arkansas and has helped us frame the messages and the target audiences we will be trying to reach during the coming year. Aubrey Patterson is a member of the Bentonville City Council. She is very aware of the growth and safety issues the council deals with all the time on many, many issues. She is also a mom who loves to ride bikes with her kids, and it's probably safe to say that the Bentonville City Council is managing one of the fastest growing communities in the United States. And finally, we are joined by Corporal John Lonkarvik, who is with the Bentonville Police Department bike team. He has a front row seat every day on safety issues facing the biking community in Northwest Arkansas, and the corporal also rides a bike these days in 100-degree heat wearing a vest. So thank you for doing that for our community. Jeremy, let's go to you first. You've been around this issue for a long time. You do this as part of your day job, but you're also in your personal life, you ride a lot. In the evolution of the biking culture in Northwest Arkansas and Arkansas in general, where do you think we are right now?
First, thank you, Joe, for hosting the conversation, and also to all my fellow panelists here for taking the time to talk about an issue that's not only important to the foundation, the Walton Family Foundation, but also to Northwest Arkansas, really is a quality of life issue. To put it simply and answer your question, bicycling, in this area of the state has really never been better. For the past 5 years, Northwest Arkansas has experienced a steady rise in both bicycle and foot traffic. Particularly in our densely populated areas, around our cities, where trails go through our downtowns and also near our primary regional assets, much like the one you're sitting in today. Last week, the foundation released a study that reported 36% growth in cycling use since 2015. So we've continued to see expansive cycling on our trails, on our streets, all throughout our neighborhoods and communities in the last 5 years. And I think just to touch on a point that you mentioned earlier, in this pandemic, we've also seen tremendous increase in cycling. You mentioned the sales of bikes are sort of through the roof. It's hard to find a bicycle right now if you go to certain places. We are seeing the same things in our trail usage, 105% increase in some of our mountain bike trails throughout the region, anywhere from 76 to 100% increase in some of our greenway trail usage throughout the region as well. And so I think that thinking about how that usage has increased over time, we only project that to continue. And as you know, we've seen tremendous usage of our Slow Streets program that Bike and WA has rolled out in Bentonville and Fayetteville to accommodate a growing number of residents walking and cycling and really exploring their neighborhoods without a vehicle. And so it's something that we continue to see growing. We think the state of cycling is really sound. However, we do recognize that there are safety issues getting from someone's home to a trail system. And so I'm really, really excited about this conversation today and where that takes us over the next year.
And thank you so much for what you have done to get us to today. My friend Teresa Crossland is with us. Now, when you The day you were brought into this project at the state capitol, I mean, you had to explain this to lawmakers, and it wasn't going great that day, was it?
Well, so we kind of came in midway in the session to lobby on this issue, and when we looked, the bill literally that day had failed in Transportation Committee on the first vote. So immediately we began to engage legislators, and there was really two areas of opposition that we saw. There was some in the transportation industry and then some in the law enforcement industry. And we really just alleviated some of those concerns by explaining what it practically meant. So if I'm at a stop sign and no one's around, I don't have to unclip. And just small examples like that and personalizing the issue really kind of just made it more clear of the practicality of the law. And with an amendment, I should give a shout out to Senator Matt Pitch in Fort Smith, Arkansas, because he was very instrumental in helping identify language that was a small amendment. It didn't make change in the substance or the application of the law, but it made everybody comfortable because it said, you yield the right of way, but in lack of traffic or in lack of people there, you can go and treat, to your point, a stop sign as a yield sign and a stoplight as a stop sign. So once we cleared that hurdle, we were fine.
But it's also a big economic development issue, and you know, any elected official likes the sort of advantages when you're filling hotel rooms and restaurants and people are buying bikes. Did that help sell this?
Absolutely. I think from a legislator's perspective, it's not often Arkansas gets to be first or Arkansas gets to be the best in something. But when we talked about this law, talking about, look, when people think of Arkansas, we want to be the most bike-friendly state in the world, not just the country, but in the world. And we have an opportunity to beat Colorado in this area, to beat Utah. And those are states that are traditionally thought of as biking states. And so we can exceed here in this area. And that did play very well in the House, especially.
All right. We'll come back to Teresa. Alex, so as we sit here this morning and talk about this, you know, you had one of the greatest lines I remember, which when we were sort of talking about what are different target audiences, you said, well, we also have to reach the older male driving an F-150 who's never been on a bike in his life. And that was sort of a great line about how there's many different segments of this. What are the target audience differences look like to you in the research you have done?
You know, it's interesting because, you know, as you were going through earlier, the target audiences, many of us wear those hats at different times. I mean, I'm the recreational rider with my family. I have the minivan, so I have the kids in the car and I'm looking out for them. And then sometimes it's just me alone, you know, listening to a podcast in my own space, almost putting on the hat of the uninformed driver. So, you know, when you go through these various segments, you know, one thing I think we really want to get across is empathy. Because if you have never been on a bike, if you've never had a car whiz by you at 25 miles per hour, like, let's think about that for a moment. 25 miles per hour when you're on a bike and a car's going by you, that feels fast. So a lot of it is about getting across what that feeling is whenever people are sharing the road safely together. So I think identifying and communicating over the next year with specific messages is really going to be important, you know, over this 12-month campaign.
And there's clearly not one type of biker either,
No.
right? There's many different levels to this, as there are many different types of drivers, right?
Exactly.
What does that look like? What are the different types of bicyclists look like to you?
Yeah, we know bicyclists, especially within Northwest Arkansas, but as we see, they come from Dallas, you know, up to Northwest Arkansas and throughout, you know, from all over Kansas City. And so you have the enthusiast. You have the person that has thousands of dollars spent on a bicycle. But then you have many of us that have gone to Walmart or any other place, if you can find it, to try to get a bike that's under $200. In fact, just yesterday, talking about just initial research, Fox Business put out that, you know, it's not just the pandemic now. I think you're seeing nationwide a change in lifestyle, that even, you know, bicycle part shortages through 2021, because not only are people looking at this new way to be able to commute or exercise with social distancing, but the fact that bicycle sales for children in April went up 203%. So that means there are going to be more kids on the roads that, again, all of us together as a community need to make sure that we're sharing the road safely.
Aubrey, sitting on the city council, I mean, you're a city council with some amazing complexities to what you do because of the incredible growth here. Now, you went and looked at the bicycling culture in the Netherlands to sort of, I think, look at how it's being done somewhere else. What were your takeaways from that trip? What did you come back with your different kind of understanding about bicycling?
Yeah, the study tour was really valuable, and my biggest takeaway was they don't have cyclists and non-cyclists. The bicycle is a tool to get from one place to another. It's older people, families, commuters, everyone is cycles, and they're able to do it because it's safe. And that's partly infrastructure, the separation, they've got bike lanes, but it's also the culture with sharing the road with motorists and bicyclists. And since most everyone cycles, they have that compassion that we're talking about, and they are able to share the roads successfully and safely.
And did you tell me that all roads have bike lanes there? Wasn't that one of the things you talked about?
Most. So there's a lot of divided lanes. So an average person like me, where I may not feel safe, going down the middle of a highway, but with those divided lanes, it's very safe. And then when they don't have a divided lane, it's a slow street where the cars and the cyclists are in harmony, basically sharing that road completely.
It's almost like the evolution we're talking about here. Alex is talking about different segments of riders or non-riders, and you're saying that when you took that trip, the takeaway was there was no such thing. It was just bicycling.
Exactly.
Now, what's it like managing the growth here? As a city council member, when you think about the potential here, what do you think about?
Well, we are known for our trails. Obviously, Bentonville has amazing mountain bike trails. We have our leisure cycling is just amazing. It's the best. And but what we're looking at is how can we connect so that we can see more commuting, more cycling for transportation purposes. And so we have our transportation department and our Parks and Rec department working together as we plan for the future to kind of integrate and have connectivity around our entire city rather than just where our trails are. We want to connect all of Bentonville and from Fayetteville to Bella Vista. With the Greenway, we have that connectivity.
And you just said something that I think is important for any community looking in today, connecting different departments within the bureaucracy of local government. You have to connect departments to make it work well.
Absolutely, and I think that's a big part of our success.
John, the Bentonville Police Department always seems to be a little ahead of its time, and it's a very professional, I'm a big fan, it's a very professional department. So how and when did the police department get into a bike team?
So the bike team's been around about 18 years now. It's really started to develop over the last about 10 years. Increase in the bike team size to 10 to 12 riders, introduction of e-bikes that allow us to get around, see more of the community in the daytime, and then utilizing it a lot during events. First Fridays, hopefully when they come back, 4th of July, all that stuff. So all those events, races, we have bike team members out.
And does that integrate you more into the community or the neighborhood? Is there a whole different perspective?
Absolutely. You're versus driving by in a car at 25, 45 miles an hour. We're on a bike, and we're out in town, we're in the community, we're able to stop, speak, talk with, ride next to somebody. That person might be riding the same direction as you, and you just start a conversation. We get to learn about what are they seeing on the trails, what are the concerns they have. We do speak to the moms that have concerns or people that are fairly new to riding, and they may have questions on what they should or should not be doing. I've had questions, are they legal to be on the roadway? Do I have to abide by the laws? We've had all those questions, but we get to really interact with the community because we're obviously out in the public. We're not separated by a car.
Now, I'm guessing a driver is paying more attention to you because you have a badge on. That's probably a safe assumption.
A little bit, sometimes.
But so what is, you know, I hear this, my wife said this to me the other day. She said, you know, I come up on a bike and I don't know if it's okay to pass. And then people also say, well, that bike came out of nowhere. Like, what are the danger points from your perspective as a police officer?
I will say, you know, when we teach officers how to ride, we say you need to ride predictable and assertive. So in other words, when you're coming up to an intersection, you need to indicate by hand signal which way you're going. By utilizing the lane on if you go towards the center, kind of indicates I'm going to go straight through this intersection. Or if I move towards the right-hand side, I'm going to make a right-hand turn. By using those hand signals, that communicates with the drivers and makes the driver of a vehicle looks at you more as being another vehicle on the roadway versus just a cyclist on the roadway. So, I mean, in essence, if we teach people how to ride according with the laws and stuff like that, then that's how they're viewed. The coming out of nowhere, we do hear that a lot. Bikes jumping out of in between cars and stuff like that. It goes back to that educational point of us being out in town, being able to communicate with cyclists, informing them of kind of the proper manner of how to ride a bike on a road. And the same token is we also have to educate a ton of drivers. I still have drivers today that do not think that a bicycle should be allowed on the road or is allowed on the road. So, I mean, back to your F-150. I get it all the time. I do get them. They say, bicycles shouldn't be on the road, or they're not allowed on the road. And, that's a good point to educate them.
Joe, on that point, if you don't mind, at For Media Group, Atomic Research, our research division, conducted a survey of 1,000 Arkansans just to get the idea about how knowledgeable are you. And according to this survey, less than 1 in 4 considered themselves very knowledgeable about bicycle-related laws. I mean, it speaks, perfectly to that point. But then we talk about this legislation, and it was even more stark. The legislation has been enacted for about a year now, and again, that's part of the reason for, this campaign. But, only 76% of people did not know that a bicyclist could treat a stop sign as a yield sign. 81% did not know that they could treat a red light as a stop sign if there was no oncoming traffic. So I think it really reinforces the point about education and the need for a campaign like this.
Yeah. Jeremy, let's go back to you at home, and certainly the Walton Family Foundation has great reach and impact and many issues that you're encouraged to get involved with, especially in Northwest Arkansas. Why is this a priority? How did this become something that you really focused on?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think that one of the things I think about is as we have grown our trail network, which is the most popular place to ride a bike, we have closing in on 500 miles of trails in our region now. However, we recognize there's still work to do to ensure that trail system serves the region's mobility needs, and it's also seamlessly connected to safer streets, and those safer streets lead directly to our neighborhoods and our homes. And I'm reminded kind of what Alex was just talking about. This education process around safety really, in some ways, begins at home. I have a 10-year-old son who's just discovered mountain biking. My wife is now venturing into our state park trail systems and on our greenways. My 8-year-old daughter loves to ride to school, and every time we go out with them, it's a constant education process. If anyone that has children recognizes that as you approach a street, you have to remind them what to do, or a stop sign, or what to do. And so, in a lot of ways, our entire community is like that. We're at that phase right now where we're having to educate around what you do when you see a cyclist, or as a cyclist, what you do when you are entering into traffic. And so I think that's really the bulk of the work to do. And we have a ton of local partners that they build a very strong network of paved multi-purpose trails They do serve as active transportation and for utility purposes. You know, we take the bike trails and we ride our bikes to go grab a drink or grab a bite to eat or get down to the grocery. I think it's something that has the potential really to be an asset as mobility issues become more prevalent because of our growing population and the growing interest in cycling in this area. So, and in many ways, it comes down for the foundation to accessibility and connectivity, and how they play an important role in creating a cycling network that can be used by everyone.
Connectivity is important, isn't it? And this really fits with the larger connectivity theme. Is that fair statement, Jeremy?
Agree entirely.
Teresa, let me come back to something we touched on earlier, which is, and I'm old enough now that I love it when Arkansas is at the top of a list rather than 43rd.
Yes.
And when you stepped into this, you were able to say this will make us the second state to really progressively go after this. And did that resonate, that message, with legislators?
The honest truth is, we had to really eliminate the concerns around the issue, the concerns that people would be speeding through stop signs and ignoring stoplights, and that was the primary concern. Now, once we eliminated that concern, then to say, and look, we can be the best, we can be in the top two, we can move forward on an issue and lead, that resonated as a secondary message. But really what they needed to hear is that, this is practical, common sense, and safe. And that was the key element that they needed.
And then it clicked and it worked.
It did. And honestly, that personal example of, everybody knows I'm a little bit clumsy, trying to see me unclip at a stop sign, they all knew immediately, like, that was not safe for me and probably the car next to me. So once we used personal examples and overcame that, they were great.
Yeah, but the complexities of clips, like, you're not alone. I mean, again, I think this is what we keep coming back to, that there are many different types of riders, and
Yes.
not everybody can gracefully unclip and stop.
I've decided a cruiser is more my speed.
Hey, don't forget, if you're watching today, you can type questions into the chat box at the bottom of your screen, or you can give us a call at 479-553-8137. That's 479-553. There's the number right there, 8137. Aubrey, what's next for the city, do you think? Like, do you put budget behind this? How do you think in terms of what is next? Someone said to me recently, and I thought it was a great line, that Northwest Arkansas wants to be to biking what Aspen is to skiing. And is that possible? Can we get there?
Well, there's always the question of which comes first, the infrastructure or the culture. It's hard to put budget money to infrastructure for people to commute to work when you're not sure if they're going to do it. But then in order for people to start commuting to work, you have to have the infrastructure in place. So this is kind of what we are trying to work through, and looking at funding and ways that we can take what we already have. How can we integrate the trail system that we already have and connect that in? We're not looking to start from scratch. We don't need to completely reinvent what we have. We just need to look and look at what we have and connect that to rooftops. And we do have some very specific targeted projects on the horizon. We've been doing a lot of meetings with residents and seeing what do we want? What do the residents want in Bentonville? And we have had incredibly positive feedback. So we have some very targeted projects connecting schools to the trails, connecting rooftops to, various destinations within Bentonville, so that we can make it safe for people to get around.
Okay. We're getting questions from home. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not checking sports scores. John, did anyone sort of talk to, when police looked at this, were there concerns you had about what was happening at the intersection and how this would help?
Definitely, as far as, we heard about the laws and, obviously a change in it and whatnot. What it did help with the intersection is to speed them up. A complaint at an intersection is, the delay, the waiting for a bicyclist to unclip, come to a complete stop, take back off again, and it just slowed the traffic down. With them being able to go up to an intersection, you know, see that it's clear and just continue on, it's actually helping the flow of traffic in town. Because if anybody's been downtown Bentonville, we're not lacking any stop signs. We got plenty. And so it does help with the flow of traffic with it, and I think that's helped bring down some of the people that were upset about the bikes on the road to begin with. When you keep the flow up and they're not interfering with traffic, then they're less vocal.
Okay.
They don't seem to upset.
Jeremy, a question we're getting from a viewer. Could you explain more about slow streets and how that impacts all of what we're talking about today?
Sure. So slow streets it's not unique to Northwest Arkansas. There are a number of these around the country, but our local bicycle advocacy organization, Bike NWA, has implemented with the city's partnership both in Bentonville and Fayetteville, and I think they're actually looking at Rogers and Springdale as well. But it's simply an initiative on usually it's on Sundays, different times in different cities, but I think it runs from noon to 6 or 10 to 4 or something like that, where there are streets. They're not fully closed to vehicles, but a number of volunteers come out, put signs out, simply awareness campaign for drivers that really the street is being utilized for to allow and accommodate pedestrians, families, cyclists, anyone who really wants to kind of walk around and enjoy a route, essentially a pre-identified route within the city, are allowed to do so during those hours. And so traffic is encouraged to slow down, to share the street. As I mentioned, I've participated in a number of those. My wife and I just acquired a tandem bicycle, which is a true testament to our relationship. But we've been utilizing it on the slow streets and having a great time. It's a way to really get out and see people while you're physically distanced from them, but be able to get back to that social environment, which is a more healthy environment, while staying physically distanced from others. And so this is a great way, I think, would highly encourage anyone to try it out.
Alex, you need a tandem bicycle, okay? You need to put that.
I'm ready.
Hey, Alex, question for you, back to sort of messaging. This is from someone at home. As an avid cyclist, I worry about trusting drivers to know the rules that allow me to make use of this new law. So what are you going to do to teach drivers about this?
It's a great question, and I think we go back to the idea of understanding the different target audiences. So I think what you're going to see over the next year are very targeted messages to the drivers. It's very important to create video content from literally from the point of view of the driver through the windshield, so that they understand, as they're coming up to a stoplight or they're coming up to one of those mini stop signs, they know what it is that, the right essentially that the bicyclist then has. So you're going to see those messages on television, you're going to hear them on radio as you listen to podcasts, and especially on social media and native media, where you can literally see the proper behavior and etiquette, not only according to the legislation, but as just a good community member on the roads. You'll see those messages throughout the next 12 months.
This is for any one of you. I'm going to throw this out there. This is from a viewer. This seems counterintuitive. It seems like if bikes don't stop, that's more dangerous. How does that make things safer?
Well, I mean, that's literally the reason for the amendment that was put in the Senate. It says they yield the right of way. So all existing laws are in place if there is traffic at that stop sign. So it doesn't change what's already happening. It's just more practical if no one is there. If that is where the change happens. And so there's an element of common sense also by the rider to make that judgment that, there is no safety issue here, there's no one here, so I can go. But existing law is not preempted by this. If they have to yield the right of way, they still have to yield the right of way.
Aubrey, You know, it's interesting, in local elections in Northwest Arkansas, traffic congestion always comes up.
It does.
And at Arkansas Good Roads, we talk a lot about the fact that, you know, tens of millions of dollars is wasted each year by people sitting in traffic, burning gas that they don't have to burn, wasted time and productivity. So congestion's a big issue in central Arkansas, in Little Rock, in Conway, in Northwest Arkansas. Jonesboro has congestion issues. So where do you think this fits in congestion? Is that a conversation I guess we should be having?
I think it is, and pretty much if you ask anyone in Bentonville, traffic would be the number one concern, absolutely. And I think that's part of what the message needs to be when we have some animosity of drivers when they see cyclists on the road, realizing, well, if they're on a bicycle, they're not in a car causing more congestion. And that's part of the conversation, that when we pull cars off of the road, that benefits those that are still in vehicles because there is less traffic. And that is why we are, you know, willing to kind of make this commitment to connecting, and, you know, that it is that our transportation plan is private vehicles, it is cycling, and it is pedestrians. It's all modes of transportation. And that's kind of, it's not, cars are not the only way that people get around. It's a complete plan, and that's kind of a shift that needs to be made.
Jeremy, I have socks on and dress shoes today for the first time since March. So the pandemic has, without a doubt, changed small and large things we all do. So, God willing that the pandemic starts to wind down soon, does this increased emphasis on biking stay with us, do you think? Do you think this has projected biking into a whole new world?
You know, that's a conversation that a lot of colleagues and I are having right now, and I think the entire bike industry is having right now. It's interesting because I feel like, as someone mentioned earlier, you know, there's in some ways a lifestyle change happening in our country, and I think we're definitely seeing that in Northwest Arkansas. Anything that stays with us as long as this begins to change habits and hopefully change them for the better. Not only in, you know, our health habits, but, you know, in some ways our mobility habits. And so, you know, if my normal habit is to, you know, take my child to the park and drive there, and now recently we're able to bike there just because it's a way to get out of the house. I feel like those habits could potentially be here to stay. But I think, to Aubrey's point earlier, it's not only sort of that cultural shift, but the infrastructure really needs to be there to support that. And so in many ways, the conversation around safe infrastructure is a really critical one. And we've had great partners like the city of Bentonville and others to help drive that conversation along. And, you know, ultimately, from the foundation's perspective, we want to connect people to the places they want to go, and whether that's by bike or by foot. We want it to be done in a safe manner. And so, you know, the positive impact of cycling that we see today, we believe that will only continue to grow as we improve access to the infrastructure, programming, and ultimately the culture across Northwest Arkansas.
So let me throw this out to the five of you. I think anything that gets kids off their screens and out getting fresh air is a good thing, and certainly biking is a good thing. But a viewer sends in a question: is there a concern about children and their ability to judge what's safe? So how do we, and you spend a lot of time around young people, let's start with you, and I want anybody to take a shot at this question. How do we help kids do this?
I think we're already at the point of helping kids. If you look at the public schools, they have biking in the middle schools, and part of that is actually officers will actually go out and ride with these kids, and the instructors are actually, teachers are taking them out and they're showing them how to ride on the roadway, which side, stop at stop signs, how to cross the road. So we're getting our kids educated. We host a bike rodeo during First Friday where the kids are coming out and we set up roadways with stop signs and stuff, and we're teaching the kids, hey, you need to come to the stop sign, you need to stop, look both ways, cross your bike, even get off their bike and walk their bike across the intersection if they're, you know, depending on what they're using, trail systems. The Benton County Fair, when they come back around, hopefully it does, we have another one out there that the police department hosts out there. We're actually teaching kids how to ride a bike and teach them how to ride on the roads. So I think the education is there, along with the parents who, hopefully, the parents are abiding by the rules and they're teaching that to their kids. And out in the community right now, I'm seeing that. We see mom, dad, the kids, and everybody's riding, and mom and dad are stopping at the stop signs, and they're looking both ways, and the kids are learning this. So I mean, we're definitely in the growth state, but we're teaching, they're learning.
Joe, can I?
I want everybody's thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, as a father of an 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son, the summer of 2020, while it has not been what we thought it would be, training wheels came off. And, there's
Literally and figuratively.
Yes. And, as a parent, there's nothing more gratifying than when your child learns to swim or, playing catch. And I found that, there are only so many things we can do in the house. We can only watch Disney Plus so much. And so, we all committed to getting out on the roads. And part of that is literally teaching the children about when we're rolling up to the stop sign, gradually looking around, making sure there's no oncoming traffic. It was a big hurdle to go across a major street in Bentonville for the first time. The growth that the children had by finally being able to accomplish something like that. So, part of it is on us to educate and, law enforcement to help us with that and the enforcement of the laws, but also it's for parents to get that joy whenever you have your children learning and taking those growth steps, throughout all of life, but even now, on a bicycle, because it is going to be a way of life for a while.
We, thought a lot about who to invite here today, and you're all fabulous on this topic, but you're also Arkansans who care about the state, and we care about our families, and I think, again, and maybe it sounds, I think we all appreciate certain things more with the year we have lived through. So I want to sort of get a closing thought from everybody on biking in general, where it fits, and sort of where we are as a society right now, and why this matters to our state. And Jeremy, let's go to you first for maybe a closing thought and what that looks like to you.
Sure, thanks, Joe. I think we've talked a lot about, honestly, the humanistic element, I think, of this is so important. Most cyclists, if they're of driving age, they're also drivers. And so, we have to recognize that there are multiple perspectives here, but we're all human beings. We're all people here within our communities that share a space. And so sharing that space, regardless of if you're walking, biking, or driving, is a critical piece to our overall community health. And I think that armed with sort of that knowledge and then the data to back up the fact that we know cycling is popular in Northwest Arkansas, we are recognizing that people would like to ride around this community from their homes to the trails. And we have an infrastructure network that is there that we can utilize to take users to their growing trail network if it's a safe way to do so. And so I think in many ways, safer streets for our families, for runners, for walkers, they also make safer streets for our drivers. It takes some knowledge of what the rules and regulations are, really to ensure that everyone understands that.
Thank you, sir. Alex, closing thought?
One of the big things that, especially now when we talk about where we are, and one final stat I wanted to share from our research, because again, we surveyed, Arkansans across the state, and that was the economic development part of it. We're going to bounce back, and we're going to be better than ever. And, the survey was taken during the pandemic, and nearly 60% of Arkansans agreed that, having a community that is bicycle friendly, it helps boost the economy. And so when we see the upsurge and, understanding the need for safety and the understanding of the legislation, but know that, in the end, it pays off for all of us, whether we're cyclists or not. And the data was very encouraging to see that people realize that, having bicycles integrated with our communities is going to be good for the economy.
Councilwoman, closing thought?
Just wanted to add my thoughts about health, both mental and physical health. And we can talk about lots of different reasons why the benefits of cycling, but we can't forget to add that. And I think the pandemic has brought kind of an awareness of when you're isolated, your mental health. And exercise. And especially if we're raising our young children to be healthier, to cycle, to move more, to have a healthier lifestyle. And I think cycling is a big part of that. So as we look to educating, as we look to infrastructure, it connects to our physical and mental health, which is of utmost importance.
Thanks. John?
I've actually had 2 boys that got off the training wheels this year, and it's created a new atmosphere for our family to get out and ride. We can travel farther, we can go different places. So I definitely think it's here to stay. I mean, the biking community is going to grow, and it's going to continue to grow. And it just created a atmosphere for families to get out, and it's economical as far as, it's increasing downtown and the restaurants, but also it's also economical for the families because it's a relatively not terribly expensive hobby to get into as a family. And so I think it's going to hang around, it's going to stay, and we are enjoying it. So,
Teresa?
I think sometimes when you lead, we forget that things are going to change. And if there's anything 2020's taught us, that you have to embrace change. And so through leading and through growing pains, I think if Arkansans remember the benefit and remember this is our opportunity to lead and really just embrace change hard and be open to it, I think that environment and the culture, I think they will not regret for one moment pushing for this bike-friendly, cyclist-friendly state.
Willing to lead and embrace change is a great note to end on. I want to thank you again for joining us today. For more information, please check out the Good Roads Are Safe Roads website at goodroadssaferoads.org. You can get more information about the Arkansas Good Roads Foundation at www.argoodroads.com. And I also certainly want, as we close, mention that we want to create materials and themes and ideas that not just for use in Northwest Arkansas, but we're going to have a dynamic web page here where we want to create items and brands that can be customized for any community across our great state that is thinking about this issue, and any community leader that is trying to bring the safety and the economic development and the health well-being. We want to make materials for any community to use. It has been, by any standard, a tough year, and things that bring us together to do something enjoyable matter more than ever right now. Bicycling is one of those things, and we look forward to working with you to make our state a safer place and a place where we can get some exercise and enjoy the natural state at the same time. I'm Joe Quinn with the Arkansas Good Roads Foundation. Thank you for being with us today.